When a fatwa is actually issued, these are issued through a clerical or, if you like, a religious leader. And in this particular instance, it is the top Sharia cleric within Iran, whose name is Shirazi. And he is the one who has issued this on behalf of the Ayatollah against Donald Trump. And this in itself is a call to arms, not only to Iranians, but all friends of Iran who are wide and diverse and spread across many different countries to potentially not just cause a direct harm to President Trump, but potentially to any related assets. One of the greatest concerns in the wake of this fatwa being actually issued is the fact that there are so many undocumented individuals that have managed to get into so many different countries across the world, including the United Kingdom. And the numbers that can be estimated that are friends of Iran in the UK particularly is very, very difficult to quantify. In the United States, for example, the CIA have documented some 5,000 approximate Iranians that have come into the United States across the soft borders in the south. And again, we've got many, many, probably hundreds, if not thousands, of individuals across continental Europe that will have become embedded in certain cities and in certain communities that are all being financed, supported, and even armed by Iran in their potential actions. And the sort of threats that we are potentially facing are wide and diverse, from what we call low-level, lone actor attacks through to possibly even coordinated attacks, as we saw in October the 7th in Israel, where that attack by Hamas had actually been financed, resourced, and supplied by Iran in them carrying out that action, which had already been some 2 years in the planning. As pessimistic and as negative as this may sound, we are all at a considerable risk right now, particularly as a result of how our government and other governments across the world have managed illegal immigration in not correctly managing those individuals and even determining their true identities and logging them before they actually come into our country. And one of the concerns is that Iran, we know, has been behind significant cyber attacks, but they're also not adverse to carrying out marauding terrorist attacks, as we may have seen in various parts of the world, quite often attributed to Al-Qaeda or Islamic State. But again, now that we know that Al-Qaeda and Islamic State have joined forces, not only with Iran, but also with other terrorist groups around the world, under this broader banner of what they call the Muslim Army, they or each of those groups could take responsibility. But we mustn't forget that Iran is the largest state sponsor of terrorism across the world. And therefore, even if they don't conduct the attack in their own name, they could attack through one of these proxies, where the threat is attributed to them, but ultimately the puppet master behind them is Iran. Our three intelligence agencies, MI5 domestically, MI6 internationally, and GCHQ, again based in Cheltenham, that are intercepting communications and monitoring traffic on the internet, for example, they are working against the clock. And every day, every week, every month that passes without a terrorist attack is more often than not down to their collaborated and hard efforts with not only each other, but also with foreign intelligence agencies and ally intelligence agencies too. But one of the concerns that we have is that there is always going to be a chance some group is going to slip through the net, and again through this undocumented incursion and insurgency by illegal immigrants, you've got a situation where those known entities will be perhaps on the radar of the security services, and they are numbering in excess of 10,000 right now of known individuals. Very, very regularly, we've seen in the past, historically, individuals that were not on that priority list. These were secondary or tertiary important targets or persons of interest, which then perpetrated those attacks. So we have to commend our intelligence agencies in their combined efforts to trying to thwart attacks against us, which we know has been considerably increasing over the last few years. And I'm sorry to say, they may not necessarily always be as successful as they have been in stopping some of these attacks taking place. Well, terrorists will look at a variety of different targets depending on what their end game or their ultimate objective will be, whether it be to undermine the infrastructure and the resilience of our country, and that could be to target trains, which we know they're interested in targeting, aviation, as we've seen historically with 9/11, and we know that terrorist groups are looking, and particularly those sponsored by Iran, are looking to do a duplication or replication of 9/11 somewhere in the world, whether it be in the United States or here in the United Kingdom or in Europe for that matter. But again, we're looking at the types of attacks which would show a lack of faith or trust that the general public would have in our infrastructure. But again, those could be cyber attacks. They don't necessarily have to be physical. But it could also be to try and test the resilience of our emergency services, our blue light services, to see how effectively they would manage. And we know that in their preparation and their training, they've been looking to try and draw in emergency services to attack. So whereas we've seen this historically with the provisional IRA, where they will target, have an initial device, for example, an improvised explosive device that will detonate. They are then looking for people to muster or evacuate to a point where they feel that they're safe before detonating a secondary device at that location. And we can't be unprepared for this type of schematic of attack to be implemented by one of these friends of Iran who are going to wish to carry out this fatwa. Although the fatwa is directed very specifically at Donald Trump, it doesn't mean that doesn't mean it's going to be a broader scope of attacks against any country that is associated or an ally of the United States, of which we are. The question that people are too timid often to ask is, should we retaliate in the wake of a terrorist attack against us? And absolutely we should. Absolutely we need to crush our enemy, and we cannot stand defenseless. So whilst Iran is now on the back foot with much of its nuclear capability now having been disrupted by the recent bombing campaign by the United States, the regime is in a very fragile state. And if they choose to pick a fight with us, we need to bring the best fight back to them.